In today's coaching call, I talked to Shanice. Shanice is an incredible woman, a mother of two, incredibly driven, working in the mental health industry. And she reached out to me about a year and a half ago. We did some group coaching together. She's been doing very well since then. But recently I saw her pop up in my Facebook group and I had an instinct that something was up. So I reached out to her and I invited her to join me on this 90-minute call, which she has graciously been willing to share with everybody. In it, we're going to tackle Christmas. I'm sure a lot of you are very concerned about the upcoming Christmas. Understandably, it's one of the toughest times of year. So we get really clear on some strategies on how to handle Christmas. But more importantly, the best bit of the conversation, the bit that I think you're going to have an aha moment too, is as Shanice realizes what it's going to take to move from just holding on to recovery by sort of her fingernails into creating the real freedom that she's after. And when we have these calls, funnily enough, when you say cut, every now and again, the magic happens after that moment. And that's exactly what happened today. So as I said, cut, we just held it for a little bit longer. And Shanice had a real breakthrough aha moment, some real awareness of what needed to be done. And so we've included that as well. Enjoy. Hi, Shanice.
Hi, Helen. How are you doing?
Very good, thanks. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to do this call with you today. So let's start. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. I suppose, Christmas is not long away. So I think that's the biggest factor that's going on at the minute.
Yeah. So I'm hearing a little bit of dread.
I think there's always a dread around Christmas, really, because obviously I always feel like it's just a stressful time more than an exciting time for me personally.
Yeah.
And I'm cooking Christmas dinner and I've got all the family at my house as well. So stress is the word that stands out for me the most there.
Good grief. Yes. I think for you and for many, a lot of people relate to that. So is that where you'd like to go with the conversation today? How could this be an extraordinary conversation that could really help you moving forward?
I think, Christmas, only because it's so, it's the top of my list at the moment, I think. And then, I'm happy to go from there and we can filter through that if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just see where it takes us, shall we? So where would you like to start? What is the biggest thing on your mind with regards to Christmas, or how you think I can help you in this call?
I think for me it's because obviously I've been in recovery for a little while now. Christmas is always a hard day, so the social events that go with Christmas, that's kind of stood out for me over the past couple of weeks. I've had a few different outings, and my experience to the outings now are completely different than they have been in any other year, which is strange. It's a good strange, if that makes sense.
It does.
But also it's like a scary change, because it's like so for example, I would overthink maybe what I would wear, what am I going to wear, and then like this year I've just gone, oh, do you know what, that looks okay, I've just ordered it, bought it, put it on, and I've just gone out with it. But it's weird, because I think, why is it like that? Why am I not looking in the mirror 5 times, 6 times to check what I look like before, that kind of thing. And then it's like a double-edged sword, if you like, because as much as I like being in recovery with, and the difference that it gives my life is so positive, but also on the other hand, I'm also aware that I'm putting on weight, which is scary. Like, it's really scary, and it's sometimes really difficult on them days. I think I've said it to you before, but generally when I'm hormonal, the thoughts that I have, the negative thoughts about what I look like and things, they're quite high. They're still really loud. And I've had really bad problems this year, specifically with like periods and things like that. So I don't think that's helped. But it's scary to feel like that it's, oh, you're putting on weight, oh, you still don't look good. But that's not the purpose of recovery, if that makes sense. So it's like a complete opposite feeling of what I want to feel, but understanding that process and sitting with them feelings, that's really difficult, but it's trying to get through them, I think.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff in what you've just said. What is it that you want to feel?
Just okay. you know, it sounds strange, but just like, oh, I look okay today. I'd accept that rather than, oh, you don't look okay today. Oh, you look fat. Oh, you look, disgusting. They're really high voices. I don't like hearing them.
Yeah.
And it is only for, I say, a short period of time. And then, I might 3 days later, I think, oh, do you know, like I feel okay today. And you think, oh, that's interesting, because that's not how I felt, 3 days ago. It's very strange. It's very up and down, it feels like.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very strange one.
Yeah, you used the word strange and scary, and I think
Yeah.
we can all agree. So this is the distinction that's coming through to me, is there's no doubt that the everybody has bad days, body image wise. And
Yeah.
I think, and I literally mean everybody, but what I'm hearing from you is you've done all the hard work of recovery, well done you. However, you're still feeling really icky in your body, and you're feeling all these, you're not feeling, you're hearing that all the negative thinking.
Yeah.
While there's days where you don't think that, and you're almost surprised, like, oh, wow, that's really interesting that today I feel great. It sounds like you'd much rather have a lot more days like that and just have the occasional day where you feel a bit ugh.
Yeah. And I think that's normal to feel. Some of them bad days are very normal.
Absolutely.
Like, even outside of recovery, I think. But I think because of obviously the situation that I've been in, it doesn't feel normal. Only when you have these conversations, you think, okay, this sounds like it's actually a normal thing. But when you're really in it, you can't see that.
So true. It's hard to see the wood for the trees when you're inside
Yeah.
it. So, I mean, anybody who didn't understand about bulimia recovery, or just any kind of recovery, I guess, binge eating, whatever, they might listen to this and think, oh, that's easy, Shanice, just stop thinking those things.
Yeah.
So tell me what the barrier is to that.
I think I personally have spent a long time, working on myself in terms of recovery, but that last bit of really, like, I suppose, fully loving myself to the extreme, I haven't done that work, I don't think. And in my, I suppose, list of priorities, I've got children, I've got a partner, I've got my mum, she's not well, so I'm her carer, and I'm the carer for my little brother as well. And I suppose in them list of priorities, I've put myself right down at the bottom. So I'm not really working on myself. I'm just kind of getting through the motions of what's been happening, if that makes sense, mostly for the past year. So I know what I need to do, but needing to do it and doing it, I think, are two different things. But I'm aware of it, which is a big thing for me.
So tell me, what do you need to do to really get this last bit, in your words, of recovery, fully loving and accepting yourself, even on the days, even when you look in the mirror and you go, what the hell just happened? What would it take? What do you need to do for that to happen? Because I mean, I can give you a list of ideas and actions, but I think you said so let's get in there.
Yeah, I think, you said just accepting, I do accept myself, and on the good days I think, oh my God, like, this is you, look what you look like, you've had 2 kids, and I can really see them positives. But on them bad days, I don't see it like that. But what's funny is it's like my eating disorder is not, I wouldn't necessarily say it's for weight, if that makes sense. It's more of a control thing. So it's hard to want to accept yourself and maybe even accept myself to a degree. But on them bad days, it's like I can't even really look at myself in the mirror. And it's such a difficult next step, if you like. I think that is my biggest barrier to that next stage.
So let me see if I've heard this correctly. Actually, I'm still not entirely sure. So I can hear that you're really clear what the next stage is. But I'm not sure I can clearly hear what you think that you need to do in order to get there. I can hear the barrier, I just can't hear the what it's going to take.
I don't know what that next step might be. I think
Okay.
maybe I'm thinking, you know, I work in mental health as well. I feel like that's important because I know what I would say to my clients who come to me and tell me things about their lives, and I know what I would say to them, and maybe I know what I would say to myself if I was one of them, but myself.
Perfect. Let's go there.
I think show kindness to myself.
Yeah.
I don't think I do that very often. You know, treat yourself to like a nice bath and just maybe write down some kind things about myself, how the day's been, the positives of the day, you know, all of that I think would be really beneficial, like gratitude of what I've got. Because sometimes I can't see all them positives. You know, I have a lovely family, I have children, and you know, when that stress hits or when them really bad body image days hits, I said to my partner the other day, I was like, oh, I just feel really I could have started crying. I feel really anxious. And it's because I felt fat on that day. And I don't necessarily speak to anyone about how I feel. I think I have like a close friend who I speak to about it, and we chat every so often. It's not every day about, you know, about the same thing, but I don't say it out loud. I have it all maybe internally. And I don't know about for yourself, but sometimes I don't quite trust what them thoughts might be, because it's not necessarily how I feel. It's just I have negative thoughts, and that's what I think at that time. I think we call them headworms. They're really loud on them days. Yeah.
Yeah, never trust a headworm. Fake news, man.
This is it, you know. And so a lot of them, they are the headworms, or you know, I still go through that stage of I'll have 3 meals a day, and then I'll, you know, I might have a little snack at the end of the day, and everybody says don't eat that. I think, why not? You know, I ask myself, why would you not eat that then? Well, do you think you've had enough? You know, really going through them motions. And sometimes it's easier to get through them, which is great. But then when it's not, I think, why is it not as easy today? I still really think that, you know, why is it not easy every day type of thing? But only now while I'm saying it out loud, I feel like I'm waffling a little bit. But I'm saying I feel like I'm processing kind of the thoughts at the same time. Oh, this is why I feel that way sometimes, and you know, but that's self-love for me. That is the next step, I think. But how? I'm open to listening to that.
Well, I'm happy to, you know, as I said, you know me well enough to know we can do strategy till the cows come home, and I can get you excited, and we put a 10-point plan in place. And but I think this conversation before we get there, if we get there, is actually really valuable, because one of the big things that I thought this when you were speaking earlier, and then it came up for me again. So let me just name it, because you know me, I'll just say what's coming and getting the download. Is there? Let me try and phrase this as well as I can. You said something interesting, which is why do I feel like this on the bad days? Almost why do I have these negative thoughts? Yeah. And I think the neuroplasticity coach in me would say, well, that's easy because you've thought them a million times, so you still believe them. But I wonder, I don't know where we'll go with this, but is there another reason you're holding on to that story? That you're not deserving of love, or that if you're fat, there's a story there, and it feels like it's serving a bigger purpose, and that's where it might be scary to let it go. Yeah,
I mean, that sounds like an interesting way. I've never thought about it like that. Like maybe I am just holding on to it. I don't know why though. I don't want it. I'd like it to go.
Yeah. Well, that's almost the easy part once you've made the decision. So I was just checking in, because if there was something that it was serving you on some level, or maybe keeping you safe on some level, it's worth. I'm not a big let's dig into the why, but every now and again, unlocking the why can help us see why we've been stuck, and then we can be even more effective in moving forward. How does that resonate?
Yeah, I think the why you know, in recovery, it's hard because, you know, that I suppose default, you will go back to old behaviors that maybe you've, I don't know, it's a hard one, isn't it? I think for me, I think I am in recovery, but I think sometimes I would maybe give myself permission to go back to old behaviors on some bad days. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's going back to them, that safe space, like you said. It does feel like a safe space for me there. Yeah.
Yeah, this that I can completely resonate with. What I'm really wanting to unlock is it's interesting because I hear the word, I self-sabotage a lot, and generally what I've come to understand is that we never really self-sabotage. Usually self-sabotage is keeping us safe. And when I hear you talking about the real pain you feel when you look in the mirror,
Yeah.
and that you're almost frustrated that you're still carrying the story, it's almost a form of self-sabotage, isn't it? The thinking that you have around your body on those days, linking all of your, I would guess, love and self-worth to that image that you see reflected back at you. That's almost a self-sabotage, isn't it? It's staying locked in that because somehow there's safety in the story, which doesn't make sense until it does.
Yeah, it does.
Like, anybody who doesn't understand bulimia would find it hard to understand that. One of my biggest realizations was the moment I realized that bulimia was keeping me safe, because I could have the freedom to eat whatever I wanted, but I was still staying thin enough to be worthy of love.
Yeah.
And that was really important for me because obviously I'm a human being. I want to feel worthy of love. And I tied in my body image, connected that to love, because I'd witnessed as a young girl, my mother being thin was very important to her, and her weight was very important to her. So I came up with the story in my mind that in order to get her love, I also had to be thin because it was very important to her, and I didn't want to be weak, or, you know, because fat to her in her story, or my interpretation of it, was I'm weak, I'm a failure if I'm fat. Because when she spoke about her own weight gain, which was minuscule, the interpretation I had was that she felt like she was failing on some level. And so I just created this huge story around it. And my way to stay safe, as my body was trying to grow and wanting to eat more, and the way to stay safe was to be able to throw up my food so that I could still be in the right body that was just close enough to being loved. You know, never felt enough, but and that was it. Once I got that, I was like, oh, of course. And then I could let go of the why and the shame. I mean, of course, there was more. I wanted to look good for the guys, and I wanted a boyfriend, blah, blah. But really, the essence of it was I desperately needed to eat. My body was hungry, but and so I would allow myself that, give myself the food, but then also stay safe and get rid of it. Now, your story might be completely different, and we don't have to go there now. But it might be worth, after this call, or even now if you want to, just sort of passing out why the self-loathing, is that the right word, that you're feeling when you look in the mirror is sticking there. Yeah. Because the how to get out, I mean, you've almost given me your 5-point plan. Prioritize myself. That's a big one. And I think that's something that we can definitely get into, because if there's one thing I know, it's prioritizing what you want is the only way to get it. And now it doesn't mean the whole day is going to be about Shanice, but
some of it might be.
Carving out like that time that nobody gets to interfere with, so that you can fill up your cup first and really work on the self-love, unconditional self-love. Fat day, thin day, doesn't matter. You said kindness to yourself, writing it down. You actually said if you were only your coach, you would have yourself write it down. And gratitude for everything you have, and then speaking to others. Well, you know, and this is a part of that piece. It's allowing yourself to be vulnerable and communicate and find people that you can connect with who understand. Because, one of the things that stood out to me about the first time we ever spoke was the deep loneliness that you were carrying, that you were existed in, carrying the weight of everything you were going through, feeling unable to share that. So, I mean, you've got a plan there, and we can add some other fun stuff into it, make it super cool. But it feels like the self-loathing is somehow keeping you safe, the same way bulimia was keeping me safe.
Yeah.
But I don't want to dig up something that's not there. So only allow me to keep going on this if you feel like it's valuable.
It does. It sounds right. You don't, like I said, when you're in your own thoughts, you don't quite think of the other side. You just think the negatives, but you don't quite see the positives. Whereas when you kind of throw that out there to someone else, it's hearing that actually, this makes sense based on what what I've been through. That maybe is my safe space. To feel okay with myself, to accept that. I'm okay to move on, if that makes sense.
Okay, now you've said something very interesting.
Yeah, whereas now what I'm saying is, I look in the mirror. Some days I feel really okay.
Yeah.
And that even on them days it's hard because I think, I spent all that time wishing that this wasn't what I would look like, and now I'm saying I'm okay with it. Why? Why am I saying I'm okay with it, even though I am? And then when I'm not, I think, this sounds more like it. This sounds more normal for me. So yeah, it's interesting to say this out loud, because it's all kind of, that bit's going with that bit, that makes sense, they can be together now.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, this is great. So what I'm hearing, let's see if I get this right. I'm hearing you say, when I actually have those days where I look in the mirror and I actually legitimately, authentically accept myself just as I am, it feels weird and uncomfortable on some level.
Yeah.
And you said something about it's okay to move on, which felt really scary. To allow yourself, to give yourself permission almost to be happy. Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah. I mean, that sounds right. The way I've formulated it. Yeah. Because it feels, I suppose, feeling negative, that feels normal.
Yeah.
The 15 years of my life I've spent feeling that way. So to feel anything other than negative is unnatural, I suppose, to myself.
Yeah.
And so you default back to them old behaviors, where are them negative thoughts? And then when you've got them, you think, right, okay, this sounds familiar. I'm more used to this. And then again, it can spiral into something completely different if it's not caught on time, type of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you're super clear on all of that, which I love, because that awareness of it is really important. So let's go a little bit further in the opposite scary direction, because what I'm hearing is somebody saying, in order to be happy, it's going to feel really uncomfortable and a little bit scary sometimes.
Yeah.
So what would being happy about yourself, actually loving yourself, mean in the big world? What is dangerous about that?
I think for me, with the kind of self-loathing, them negative, I sometimes see the world in a really negative light. Situations that happen in my life, I can only really see the negatives, which is hard, to spend your life feeling that way. People bring you positives and you're shutting them down with negatives, and I do that quite a lot. Not purposely, but again, you have these conversations and reflecting back, thinking, yeah, I do that 9 out of 10 times. And actually, I feel like if I was to really truly accept and love myself in from here, then that I could show that to other people, to my partner, even more so to my children, and really see more positives about the life that I live, because it's not a bad life, but sometimes it feels like there's no, I don't really see many positives that are going on, which is, it's sad. Because it's not, in reality, it's not really like that, but the way that I've thought about things, the way I've processed information is really negative, and therefore I can't really see what good is going on, which means that life is quite critical and negative even in a very negative and critical world that we do live in, you know.
Yeah, it's just adding insult to injury. So tell me, where did you learn to be negative and critical, especially self-critical? How did you learn that?
I don't know. I think it's over time. Again, what I would tell to my clients is, you know, your words are very powerful.
Yeah.
So the more you tell yourself negatives, the more you'll start to believe them. And I suppose it's spiraled from a young age, and it's not, you know, only now am I doing the work to kind of break that cycle of the negative thoughts.
Yeah.
So again, you default back to, oh, that's bad, you know, that's not a good thing. I don't see the positives in that, you know.
Yeah. So let's jump 3 years to the future, where you've thoroughly conditioned yourself to experience gratitude on a daily basis, turn all the headworms from negatives, you know, and criticism into positives, and finding excitement and challenge. You know, we're not saying paint rainbows and unicorns over everything, but we are what I'm all about, and what I'm hearing that you would like is to be able to generally see the positive or see the challenge as opposed to the problem.
Yeah.
So how does Shanice 3 years time show up in her world that as it is now? Kids, partner, mum, would they, if you did all of that and you really transformed your mental, you know, the last bit of recovery, that relationship you have with yourself, and having a deep self-acceptance, which means being able to say, I don't care what other people think.
Yeah.
I love me. How would that show up in your world? Would anybody be resistant to it and be like, don't be so cocky, or hey?
Yeah. No, I think everyone would be accepting, you know, my not so much like people outside of my family, but like my partner, for example. He works nights and he comes home in the morning, and I'm always wake up in a bad mood because I'm tired or I've not slept. And you know, I think he's just finished work, you know, he wants to see his family, and I'm like world's worst mood. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with me, I just feel tired. I can't see the positives of the day. You know, my partner's come home from after a full day of work, and I'm not saying I should be happy at that time, but I just don't feel happy about it. Like I don't see positive about, you know, waking up in the morning, getting up, doing the school run, and like the routine, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
that annoys me, you know. Whereas again, other people, and this is where that maybe that comparison or thinking about other people's opinions, I think, oh, other people love the school run, they love this time with their children, you know, and I think I don't love that time because I don't like the school run, because I can't stand the pet, you know, all that. And then it becomes a spiral of, you know, I hate the school run, I don't want to do it, and then I feel guilty because other parents should love it, and then you know, and then it kind of it spirals into something else, that self-loathing. I should be this, I should be that. And even though it's not, I wouldn't even, now I'm saying it again out loud, like, is it eating disorder based? I don't know, because I've always kind of felt this way, and it is in between the eating disorder as well.
And it certainly, that mindset would make eating disorder ripe for a giant return. Do you know what I mean? So now that you're in this place where you've got so much recovery under your belt, what a pleasure to have this opportunity to take it to the next level so that it really sticks. And there's no doubt that a good self-loving mindset is where the magic happens, because a lot of people say to me, when will I love myself enough to recover? And I think you've just proven what I say is, you don't need to love yourself to recover. You do the work and it starts to stick. But self-love makes recovery turn into freedom, doesn't it? I mean, that's the cherry on top. You could be recovered for years but hate your life. You know. So okay, let me try and put this all together. You're really clear that what's stopping you from having what you want is a negative mindset, critical thinking, comparison that drives into a excuse my language, shitstorm of shoulds and not good enoughs and more guilt. Further, I'm now feeling guilty for feeling guilty. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And that's the only thing stopping you from having this last piece that could really transform your whole life. Because once you've got a strong self-confidence, a feeling of certainty of who you are and that you're deserving of love, what could you not achieve, if you were trying to achieve a million things? But even if it's just trying to be a great mom or whatever it might be, a great partner, those things start with self-love.
Yeah.
So you're really clear on what's holding you back. And it also sounds as if the why is actually not that important, because I dug in and you just came up with, well, I've just been doing this my whole life. It probably started when I was younger. Yes, that's true. So great. We don't need to dig out the why anymore. The reason you're still doing it so often is because you always have.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk about the what now, which is my favorite question. Because if there's nothing really in the why that needs further dissection, and it doesn't sound like there is, it just sounds like habit and you're sick and tired of it, then the breakout's going to be easy-ish, because all you've got to do is put in the regular work, and you've already told me what you need to do. But let's start right here.
Yeah.
So you say you don't want a critical comparison, guilt, shitty mindset.
Yeah.
So start right now. Tell me some great things about Shanice right now.
I don't know. I am a good mum. I know I'm a good mum. My kids tell me all the time, I am a good mum. So that is nice. I'm a good daughter. I'm a carer for my mum, and she, my mum needs me, and I love to help her, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like she deserves the world, and I would love to give it to her. I would love to do more for her. I don't know how, but I would love to. Even in work, I'm a good worker. I was up for a promotion this year as well. I didn't get it, but that's not the point. The fact that I even was considered was amazing. And I had the feedback that I got from my clients, I think, because I understand. I've gone through my own mental health, and therefore they can really relate, or I can relate to what they're saying and bring it back to them in a way that they would understand, which is, it's so rewarding for it being like that. And friends, I do the same for them. I feel like I'm a helper. Like, I love to help people, which is ironic, considering. And yeah, I am all of these things to all of these people. And again, you don't quite realize that until you say it out loud.
Yeah. And I can really feel you owning that. Does it feel odd to own it? Do you feel a little bit braggadocious, or?
It does feel a bit like, oh, I'm so good. I do this. This,
Yeah. So I want you to just sit with that discomfort, because I love that you stepped up and you said, I'm a good mom, and I'm a good. So the good news is that you'll really start to smash this, because you did it so easily. And a lot of people, if I'd called them out on that, might have really struggled to find anything. Sorry, I'm shivering. So if my voice is shaking, it's because I'm a bit cold. I thought I was warm enough, but apparently not. The good news is that this will come easier to you than I think even you realize, because there's such a big part of you that really wants it. So I'm going to encourage you to schedule all of this in. But before I do that, let's go back to what the very first thing you started this conversation with, Christmas.
Yeah.
Very stressful. I want you to reframe, if you choose to, your Christmas story in your mind right now into something that would be positive, exciting, yes, challenging maybe, but how could you look to the next few weeks with shift that mindset the way that you're telling me you want to get really good at it? Because we talk about skills, right? This is the skill. It's about taking the normal story that you got running in your head and finding the positive, finding the challenge, finding the excitement, and of course, gratitude. That's a daily practice I advocate for everybody. But why don't you look at the weeks ahead, look for the things that are worrying you. And I'm going to say nothing. I'd love for you to turn them around. If you need my help, I can help.
Yeah. I think it is, Christmas is stressful, but also it's not just stressful, is it? When we think about it, it's, but like I say, last year, my mum was in the hospital, so I wasn't able to see her. But this year she'll be with me.
Yeah.
She'll be at my house, and we'll be opening the presents together, and the kids are going to be excited because they've no idea what they've got. and I've been buying it for 4 months, so I can't wait to see what they get, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, I love it. I love it. You just jumped straight to gratitude immediately for
Yeah.
2 things. Doesn't it make you feel great?
I mean, it changes the day, doesn't it? You know,
Yeah.
I have been dreading it because I think it is always very stressful, and I'm not I'm not saying the stress is not going to be there, because obviously it will be, but you know, it's not just going to be a stressful day. You know, my whole family's going to be here. I'm going to spend the day with the kids and my mum. I'm going to be cooking for everybody, making sure everybody's happy, being a host as always, but in a positive way. You know, they're going to be here, we're going to be celebrating together, and that's completely different to what I thought it was, even though I know that's what the day's going to be about, but that's not where my focus was.
Yeah, you've used the word stress quite a few times around this Christmas. So
Yeah.
I'm going to challenge you to pick a new word. Also, I mean, we're not trying to pretend there's not going to be busyness. We're not trying to pretend there won't be moments that might be anxious because maybe the turkey will burn or whatever, you know, all these things. Or maybe the presents have been wrapped, or my partner's driving me nuts, or the kids have just, but that is just part of being in a family, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what word would best replace stress, but have a sense of empowerment, it being empowering, not disempowering? Because stress is an expectation of negative stuff to come, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's try to find something that you could now, every time you hear the word stress, you could automatically start to replace it in your mind, and could actually get you excited about Christmas.
I'd like to find a positive for it. The word that's coming to me is busy. It's going to be a busy day, and that is, it's the same but different. It takes that negative, takes that negative feeling away, because it's just going to be a busy day, and I do busy days quite a lot. So
yeah, you rock at busy days, right? You're a great mum, you're a great daughter. You spend all day worrying about everybody else nonstop. You're bloody brilliant at being busy, but you've also been really good at being stressed for a very long time.
Yeah, that's
so I'm
true.
gonna, the thing about headworms is we can't fake, well, we can fake it till we make it, that does actually work. But you could go into things, Christmas is going to be wonderful and relaxing, and you'd probably find a way to make that happen. But I think a better way to turn headworm around, and the stress worm has been one of your major headworms, particularly around Christmas, but I imagine it's probably lurking in all sorts of places. And the fact is, you are unbelievably busy. You don't even have 5 minutes in the day for you. And I'm going to encourage you, from a coaching perspective, no brainer, carving out some Shanice time to be whatever the hell you want to be, happy, sad, broken, fun, busy, tired, sleeping, doesn't matter. And you can carve out more and more of that in your life, because you'll start putting boundaries down, and you'll get it that you come first, recovery first. It's the rule. Because if you're miserable, the impact on everybody, you can see it and you hate it. So the way to undo that is to carve out religiously, unmissable, unless somebody's dying, time for Shanice, which I know is extremely hard. It's very easy for me to say I don't have kids, so I've worked with a lot of mums. I know how hard it is. But the thing that will be more tricky for you, I imagine, maybe not, maybe it'll be the same, but it'll be catching yourself in those with the stress story, and having to try and find a way to make it more empowering. And you just did that. You said, Christmas is going to be busy. Oh, everybody's like, yeah, it's going to be busy, but I've got this. Hey, and I'm really looking forward to XYZ. So what are you looking forward to? Is it being with your mum, being with your kids? What else have you got for me?
Even just seeing what everyone's got as well. My mum, she spent time obviously getting presents for everybody as well, and she gets just as excited as me. And she'll say to me, I'm not getting you anything. She's like, you won't be getting anything. I think, oh yeah, fine, fair enough. But I know she's got me some things. And she really puts a lot of thought into presents, my mum. My dad might say, oh, what do you want? And they'll get me that. And I'm not saying there's no thought in between it, but that's where it goes. Whereas my mum, she's like, oh, she needs something like this. Oh, she wouldn't buy herself that. So I know she will do that for me, which will be nice to see what she's got for me as well. And then I've done a like a reclining chair I found one a few months ago when I've reupholstered it and things for my mum, so she doesn't know she's got it. And I can't wait for her to see that that's what she's got now for her house, because it's
Love
something
it.
that's gonna, I don't know, maybe not change her life, but you know, it gives her a different, you know, different sense of independence. But I've reupholstered it into what she would like the fabric and stuff. So
Awesome.
I know she's gonna love that, and I actually can't wait for her to see it.
Yeah. How could you make, sorry, I want to take a moment there to let you sit in that vision of it, because if there's one thing that I always say, it's like the best gift of recovery is the time we get back where we're not spending all that thinking and worrying about food.
Yeah.
And now it sounds like the clear place where all that time and focus and energy is so valuable for you is the time with your mum. Because when mums get old and they need caring, it's a huge reminder that our time with our loved ones is limited. And what I'm really hearing you say is to be able to give her that love and give her the reclining chair. You know, it may seem silly to say it, but to me, I totally get it. And I think everybody listening would be going, oh yeah, totally. It's just symbolic of you're saying, I see you, I love you, I care for you, you know, and she wants to do the same for you. And that's very special.
Yeah.
And let's move it over to the food, because I could hear there's a lot of stress around food, and there's probably going to be some stress around, oh, I feel fat, I feel ugly today, and we'll get to that. But how could making that Christmas meal work for you? Is there a way to make it easier? Can you reframe it that you could actually look forward to it? You know, what can you do with that concern that's coming up for you?
For me, it's not so much the day, because I do eat meals now, and I've got, I say, experience, you know, roast dinners and things like that. So the meal itself is not scary for me. It's usually the next days after. So it's again sitting with, you know, waking up on Boxing Day and going, I'm still gonna have my breakfast today, even though I had a big day yesterday. And also, I say, not prepping, if that makes sense. So like on Christmas Eve, for example, like I have to eat on Christmas Eve. I have to tell myself that you still have to eat all of your food today, and not restrict myself for Christmas tomorrow, because again, when I don't feel so good, that's the first thing that stops. Like I will just I can just not eat my breakfast, and then that will spiral to maybe I won't eat my breakfast and my dinner, but I'll eat my tea. You know, you know, I've sorted it out by the end of the day, and then I will have something to eat at the end of the day. But it's not healthy. It doesn't help. It doesn't help with my concentration levels. It doesn't help with my stress levels. Like none of that helps.
With your busyness levels.
Yes, it doesn't help with it, and I'm aware of that. So it's making sure that I'm focused not so much around the day, but around the days before and after.
So the reframe might be something like, I've come this far. I'm so proud of myself that I'm aware of all of this, and I'm getting better at being able to eat the meals, even though there's part of me wants to restrict because, you know, there's big feasts coming up and all of that. And I'm not all the way yet that this is easy for me. So now this Christmas is just another opportunity for me to practice all of these things and to see if I can just make it a little bit easier and be a little bit more carefree. And when we look at something as an exciting opportunity to practice something, as opposed to just riddled with fear, it just changes the way we come into the situation, because it kind of gives us permission for it to be a bit scary, and for us to maybe make mistakes, or to restrict, or to, you know, whatever. But what we're doing is we're saying, look how far I've come, and I want to make this even better. So now I get this opportunity to try again. And maybe in 3 or 4 Christmases time, I won't even be worrying about the food at all. And you're very clear of the days that are scary for you. And that sounds like the days afterwards, where probably, I imagine, exhaustion's kicking in one time. And it's hard to put in all the effort of recovery when you're tired. And then you just want to go, and press the bucket button, you know? Does that sound about right?
No, it definitely does. And I think for me as well, I'm the cook in the family. So the next day I will be the one who will be cooking for the kids and my partner. And again, it's very easy not to not to make myself a portion. I've done that before. I just won't make myself some, and then I don't have to eat it.
Yeah.
And I can continue that all day.
Yeah.
It's when I
Safer that
say
way.
it, it sounds it's like a sneaky way of doing it, isn't it? Because who would stop me?
Mm.
And so therefore it's that safe place. It feels safe to do that.
Yeah.
But that sitting with the feeling, it's hard sometimes, and I do find it hard to do that, and I have done that a few times. But that feeling sometimes brings anxiety.
Yeah.
Where I'm short with the kids, and because all I'm thinking about is sit with the feeling, sit with the feeling, sit with the feeling, and I can't quite think of anything else other than just sit with the feeling, which is hard. It makes me very anxious, I think. So yeah.
You said something so important there, was when you're thinking sit with the feeling, you get short with everybody because it's the only thing you can think of. It's just sit with the feeling. So let's challenge that, because I'm all for embracing, negative, difficult emotions and having to let them ride their course. And we're certainly not saying, well, Shanice, you just really shouldn't be anxious around it. You are. It is an anxiety-provoking thing, and you're working on trying to make it less stressful and less anxiety-provoking. But you've spot on. When you're thinking, just sit with it, just sit with it. It's like, that's where the focus is going.
Yeah.
So my challenge to you for this Christmas, and this is just a coaching thing, use it, don't use it. And you'll have to find a way to remind yourself to do this, because we can get lost in our minds and we become kind of unconscious. The challenge I have for you this year is when you catch yourself, first of all, I can hear that, I think I've got it, that it would be easy to be safe and just restrict, just not eat.
Yeah.
So is the feeling that you're sitting with the feeling of wanting to eat but not, or is it the feeling of now you're trying to allow yourself the food and that's really uncomfortable?
Yeah, I think it's again, because it's that mindset, isn't it? I can kind of get through meals now, but it's that with the acceptance, you would just accept that that's, you've had your food, that's okay. And I can really talk myself through that, you need to eat, to live, to be happy, you're sitting with your family. I can do that. But it's the next day, my focus might have changed, because obviously I'm just trying to get through Christmas. But once Christmas is over, I have to then get onto a new focus, and the focus might not necessarily be Boxing Day. Have your breakfast today, and I maybe won't do the same. You need to eat to survive, to get through the day, because the day will be less than the day before, and I'm not getting to that next stage, and so therefore I could just do whatever I want. I could just chill on the sofa all day, and that's okay. And again, it's easy to do that. So what I have to do is then make the effort to go, okay, you do need to eat today, and sit with that feeling of you at today, you ate all day yesterday. Oh, Friday you had a takeaway, and all that together is really hard to comprehend on that one day. So maybe I don't give myself time to think about it between them 2 days, but on that third day, that's probably where I'll think about all of it. And it's a choice. We talk about choices, and you have to actively think about, I need to eat today, and if I choose not to eat today, it brings a different kind of anxiety, but it's anxiety that I'm used to. I can kind of deal with the day without eating, whereas eating, that brings me them feelings where I have to sit with it and go, okay, I feel fat, or you've had too much, or you can't exercise this week because you've got a busy week, and all them other things come into play then at that time.
I can hear that, the stacking.
It
starts with one thing and then it turns into 100. But there was a takeaway last Friday, and then what if I can't get to exercise this week, and blah, blah, blah,
exactly.
And I'm just going to, and then it just spirals into, I'm going to die alone and fat.
Yes. By the end of it, that's what you come to the
that's what you
conclusion of.
get to, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is something that I picked up while you're chatting. The next level of, so the mental piece we've spoken about, and there's a lot of work around self-love, unconditional self-love and acceptance, which needs to be done. Here's an upgrade from the recovery where you are. You've made all this progress, and this is where it sounds like you are. So feel free to correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Something like, I get that I need to feed myself, and I get that I need to eat. And I'm actually really good right now at being able to feed myself and eat, and then kind of get on with my day.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Christmas, suddenly there's more food, more relaxing. So I'm eating more and moving less. I'm not as distracted and busy as I might normally be. And oh, hey, by the way, I'd like to actually just relax and have fun and just give into all of this, you know, like, because isn't that what life's all about? But to do that is really scary. And so the challenge I have for you is that the thinking that I have to eat. So here's the distinction. If you wake up on the Boxing Day morning and you are full from having a beautiful meal the night before, beautiful indulgent meal, as most of us will,
yeah,
you're probably going to be full the next day, and you're probably going to be full for quite a long time. So the way I work is, it's not about having to eat. It's about giving ourselves permission to eat if we're actually hungry. And there's the challenge. Can you feel that?
yeah,
So on Boxing Day, it's not about I have to eat, although for some people in early recovery, I might say, hey, if it's safer to do that, because that'll, you know, allowing yourself a little something's probably better than going to restriction and kicking off that.
yeah.
But I would imagine that you're probably in a position right now to start practicing something a little bit different, which is, I love and accept my body. I want to fuel it. You know, I want to eat to keep it in good shape and nutrition and all this. And so when it is hungry, I am going to be brave. And I use that word very specifically because I can feel the anxiety most people would feel around that, is when I'm hungry, I'm going to be brave. And I'm going to give myself permission to eat the right amount to keep me comfortable and nourished and all the rest. However, when we overeat, when we indulge on Christmas Day, the next day, you're probably going to be full for a long time, which for some people would be very scary, that feeling of fullness. But what you've just pointed out is it's only scary in the context of, oh, but there was this other meal, and then what if, and what if. But actually, if we take that away and we just say, I'll eat again when I'm hungry, when my body's giving me those grumbles and I can feel I'm hungry again, I will give myself permission to eat, even if it's scary. But by the time you're hungry, the discomfort of fullness is gone. And it also means that you might have a good whole morning before you even feel like eating something.
Yeah.
So that might be very uncomfortable at first, but there'll be moments of like freedom and liberation. We're just like, oh, it feels just so good not to be hungry. Oh, this is so great. I wasn't hungry anyway. I didn't have to force myself not to eat. I just wasn't hungry.
Yeah.
You feel that distinction?
Yeah.
How does that land?
It's completely different, isn't it? You know, the way that you think, because it is you know, I think it just sounds so silly when you say it, doesn't it? You know, out loud, because you think just eat when you're hungry. It makes sense.
It's not so easy to do, though. We all know.
No, it's really not. And I think hearing them cues like stomach grumbling and stuff, like I hear it and I don't ignore them anymore, which I you know, again, maybe previously I have done that.
Yeah.
And I think it just reminds me, okay, yes, you know, you do actually need to eat, even on them the days where you don't feel like it, or the days where, you know, you can let that, I call it ED behavior, like the ED behavior will take over on that day. But yeah, no, it sounds like it makes a lot of sense. You know, it's okay not to get up in the morning and have a big bowl of breakfast in the morning, because I might not necessarily need or want it.
Yeah.
But
and if you do, great. And if you don't, then it's great. It means your body's telling you, hey, I'm full, we're good. We've got enough on board for a while. It's one of the hardest things to do, but it's for so many people, it's like a breakthrough moment where they have too much to eat. They keep it down. And then the next day, they're willing to sit with that fullness and all of that. But on the other side of that, it's just this liberation. It's like, oh, when I actually listen to my body, it's not trying to make me fat.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, my body's actually on board with me. It doesn't want me to eat too much. And when I do, it will give me some obvious cues, which will be, hey, I'm not hungry. Or I've got more energy. That's another one. A lot of people will say, I got up the next day and I was like desperate to go for a run, you know, or something like that, whatever their exercise of choice is. And when they get that and they start to realize that's their body being very clever and trying to burn through the extra fuel that it doesn't need, or that it's just full because it just doesn't legitimately need more food anymore. That's kind of so cool, because then you realize you can start to trust your body. And I think you've made so much progress now that if you were to start practicing this little piece, just taking it to the next level, you'll have those moments of, whoa, I can totally trust my body. And then it's just going to be so much easier to not feel the fear around it, because you'll know that even if you overeat, the next day you'll see your own pattern. You'll either be somebody who's just got so much energy, or you'll be somebody who's just not hungry, or you'll have both. And I know for me, if I've eaten a big meal, whoa, the next day I probably won't even think about food until way in the afternoon. Now, if you told me that that was possible, 10 years ago, I would have said, not a chance. I'm always hungry. I'll always be hungry. But after enough recoveries under your belt, you get those amazing experiences, and you learn that worst case, if you have indulged, that's what's out there for you. But the discipline is not to continue indulging, otherwise you just feel like crap.
Yeah.
I mean, you could keep indulging, but your body will give you a lot of signals to say, well, this is not cool. We're not loving this anymore.
Yeah.
But, so the discipline for me is, well, if I'm going to indulge, I may as well just enjoy it. And how cool, tomorrow, I'm probably not going to be hungry for a long time. But the discipline is now not to wake up in the morning not hungry and then just be eating anyway. Because that's the discipline is listening and honoring, not just overriding it relentlessly with indulgence. And everybody finds their balance. But here's the thing that I want to suggest, because I can, this is a scary thing, and I'm not trying to ask you to practice it on bloody Boxing Day of all things. It's like the hardest day of the year for a lot of people. I wouldn't just say, oh, we'll just wait to be hungry. What I'd say is, hey, why don't you pick 3 to 5 times of the day on Boxing Day where you're going to just check in to see if you're hungry. So you might pick 8 o'clock, 10, whatever, choose your times.
Yeah.
And at those times, you set an alarm and you check in to see if you're hungry. And if you are, you honor that. Brave, you give yourself permission to eat whatever your body's asking for. And in between those times, if the alarm isn't going off and you're thinking about food, shift your focus to where it counts, to your family, to your mum, to relaxing, to the book you're reading, whatever it might be. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like practicing carefree, but within a structure.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So you're not quite a carefree yet, because that can be like, if we leave these things up to chance, they can kind of fall off. We can fall off the horse. But if you give yourself permission to say, I'm only going to think about this 5 times today, and if I'm hungry, then I'll eat. Then you only have to have 5 times of the day where you might feel that anxiety. And when you're feeling it outside of that, your job is to shift your focus, which I know you're good at.
Yes.
Already.
Yeah. So just giving myself, again, it's like giving yourself permission to think about it at them times rather than spending the whole day focused on it.
Exactly.
It becomes then something else, doesn't it? It becomes, again, it reminds me of, think about food all the time, think about what food that I can't eat, that I want to eat all the time. It's not, I can forget about it, put that to the back of my head. Because now if I just think about a food that I want, I'll just go and eat it, because then I know I'll stop thinking about it. So I agree. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, when we leave our meal times up to chance in early recovery, we can spend the whole day obsessing about it. But if you just say, I'm going to worry about it here, 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 and here, and the rest of the day I'm going to practice not thinking about it, that's much more empowering, because then there's only 3 or 5 times a day where you have to feel that anxiety and really be faced with the decision of eating. But as I say, I'm getting a clear indication from you that you've already had a lot of practice with this. I'm just asking you to take it to the next level, where you don't have to eat. You only eat if your body's hungry, and you get to do that now because you've already practiced recovery for so long that you're good at a lot of things already. You've got them under your belt, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. So, wow, we've covered a lot of stuff today. What would you say is the biggest takeaway for you, the most valuable piece?
It's I think the structure of the way that I'm going to call it a story, but the way I word my story. So my default is negative. Everything is default negative, and I have to make the effort, I suppose, to, even if I do think it, rethink it again in a more constructive way.
Love that. Default constructive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so default, at least constructive, and then in that constructive way, you can see positives and negatives, which gives, what I say to clients, it gives you a more balanced story.
Yeah.
It's not all going to be bad. You can see some good in there, and you can see them good as well as the bad. And I think that's what I will try and do moving forward.
Yeah. Well, what does Yoda say? There is no try. I know that you can do it. So here's the challenge.
Yeah.
what is your commitment to make that happen? And again, keep it so small you can't fail to achieve it. It almost feels like you need a little appointment with yourself once a day, because you actually know what to do, right?
Yeah, it's a strange one, but I think I I know what I need to do, but doing it and knowing what you need to, I think, are two different stories. But I think to make the effort, I have journaling books at home, and I have a book that I write things in, so I've been scribbling down since we've been speaking.
Brilliant.
But I haven't looked at it since the last time we spoke, and I'm rereading some of the stuff that I've put in here, and I think, wow, like, it's so different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yes, it does. I've read some of my old stuff and I'm like, whoa, did I used to think like that? Oh my God, really?
Yeah, it's just, it's bizarre reading it back now. And I think if I was to continue, you know, what you say, like journaling, checking in once a day, maybe writing some things that I'm grateful for, how the day's gone, in a more constructive way, I can read back and think, oh, it wasn't really like that. You know, how I thought and what's really happened are sometimes two very different things.
Absolutely.
So that could give a better story then, couldn't it? You know?
Yeah. I love this idea of the story. So I agree with you. I think writing down, I call it headworm busting, where we write down all our negative thoughts and you turn them around. I've found personally and with clients that the end of the day is a great time for doing that.
Yeah.
Because you actually look back over the day and you look to see where all the negative stuff you've thought, you know, you pull it all out, you get it out of your brain onto the paper, and you spend a good 5-10 minutes rewording it, writing down the new statement that is empowering, where problems become challenges, you know, and where you can actually cross off all the stuff that's absolute bollocks. Just be like, rubbish, why did I think that? And I know that because you do this for a living, you're going to be really good at spotting the internal BS, you know, because we see it in others, so it's quite easy to spot it in ourselves, provided we're giving ourselves a dedicated time in which to do it. Because the problem with saying, oh, well, I'll just turn my thinking around, is without a dedicated practice of doing that, the default doesn't change, because the default has been wired in, and the only way to wire it out is spending time practicing wiring it out.
Yeah.
And I'm a big, like, don't leave this stuff up to chance. You actually have to schedule it in. So what is your commitment? Let's get really clear on your commitment to doing this practice. Is it a once a day thing? Is it 5 minutes? Is it 20 minutes? Is it once a week? What are we talking?
I think daily sounds like a good practice of doing it. And in the evenings, sometimes I can't wait for the day to end, just so I can sit and be alone, you know, and just process kind of the day. But I don't write it down, so it can be really a chance of overthinking or seeing the negative. So I'm great with alarms. Like, I have an alarm for everything. So maybe setting myself an alarm in the night time where I would just get my maybe book out and I just maybe write some things down. It doesn't have to be long, you know. I think commitment wise, if I say it's going to be half an hour, I'm not going to want to commit to it, but just to
agreed,
you know, spend 5 minutes writing as much as I can in 5 minutes, and then that's it.
5 minute minimum. You know, if you happen to do 20, great, but if you just do 5, then you're done. I have that at the moment. I'd injured myself a while ago, so I'm not really able to go and do any proper training, and pretty much the only thing I could do was get on a spinning bike, and this couldn't be more boring when I shoot myself. But I was like, well, I could feel myself just not wanting to do it because I was bored, but I also wanted to do it because it makes me feel good, right? And it keeps me at some level of fitness. And so I just made a 10-minute minimum. And there were 3 days last week where I just did 10 minutes and then I got off the bike. But then there are other days where I kept going for an hour because I had the music pumping, and, you know, so I love that. A minimum of 5 minutes in the evening. And I would go even one step further and say, grab a journal that you have or find something new that's inspiring for you and put it on your bed or somewhere where you can't fail. It's like having your trainers. If you want to start running in the morning, you want to have your trainers and all your gear ready for you in the morning, so there's no resistance to getting it done. And if your journal with a pen, and it's a nice journal and you love it, and it's there, and it's where you dump all the negative stuff and you replace it before going to bed. And what I love about that is as you go into sleep, because that's where all the neural rewiring, you said you were default negative, now you want to become default constructive. All that rewiring actually happens when we sleep. So imagine the
Yeah.
last thing you do every night is to dump the negative and replace it with constructive. You'll go to sleep thinking about all those constructive things.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a game changer. I would love to be in touch with you again. If you would commit to this practice and you do it every day for 3 months, imagine the change.
Yeah. It'll be massive.
It
And
will be.
I know this. I would tell it to my clients, you know. But I know that how powerful it can be, but it's that commitment, I think. And you know, going back to what we said right at the beginning, is it something that I'm holding on to, them negatives? You know, I know what needs to be done now. You know, I've committed myself to it, I suppose. And for me not to do it then would be that self-sabotage, I think, to keep hold of that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can hear you really don't want that anymore. So if you don't want it, there's only one way to change it. And I think, you know, we jumped on, we spoke about self-love and self-acceptance. That will no doubt be the piece that pops up from the most for you.
Yeah.
And it may be that, and you know this stuff, it may be that you start to recognize that you need a new mantra or something, you know, it needs to be on the mirror, or it needs to be in the car or whatever, so that you can't fail to remember what you need to remember about yourself. And it might be my one is as simple as I am enough. You know, on the days when I feel like a piece of poo, I just remind myself I'm enough. And it just grounds me in, I'm not terrible, not great, but I'm enough today. And it's very comforting to me when I'm struggling with something. So, you know, that may not work for you, but once you start to see, hey, that keeps coming up for me. Gee, that headworm again.
Yeah.
It's time to create a new mantra, a new story. But this is a great place to start, because when you start writing down the same things every night, you start to recognize, okay, now, Helen, that needs to change. You know, so start there. And maybe it becomes a mantra that you put on your phone, and there's a million other things you can do. But I think the real bit I pulled out from you was that I got, like the big takeaway for me was you prioritizing everybody else, and it's coming at the expense of your happiness.
Yeah.
And there's nothing stopping you at this point from changing that, because all it's going to take is 5 minutes a day. And you protect that 5 minutes like a lioness protecting cubs. You are like, no, nobody is disturbing me for these 5 minutes. It's Shanice time.
Yeah.
And it's tough. Unless somebody is dying, you're not being disturbed. And you'll have to get, I can imagine, like you'll find even those 5 minutes, somebody will be coming in. So you carve it out. That is a non-negotiable 5 minutes that are just for you. And you can make them as fun and enjoyable or whatever as you want. But really, the simplest thing in the world is have the journal somewhere you can't forget it and commit to it. 5 minutes. Everybody can do 5 minutes.
Yeah. Again, it sounds very simple, doesn't it? You know, when we say it like this. And I agree. I definitely do.
Yeah, lovely. Well, that feels like a good place to leave it, Shanice. Thank you very much.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. So that's the cut. How was that?
Do you know, really, I didn't know what I was going to say, and I really thought I was waffling for a little while. But I feel focused, if that makes sense, about the next steps. And actually, you know, these are things that I think about all the time, really, you know, about that next step, and you know, why am I not at that next step yet? And you know, from what I've heard today, I've not quite committed myself to that next step, if that makes sense, which is hard to know that, but actually it's like a starting point again, isn't it? You know, when you look back to where I was at 2 years ago to where I'm at today, I'm a completely different person. And I think, you know, if I look back today in 2 years' time, you know, it's that next bit of commitment. You know,
quality problems.
But it's what you said, freedom, that stands out to me the most. You know, I feel like I'm in recovery, but I don't feel like I'm free, and that's where I would like to be, in that freedom stage. So
that's big. It's a funny thing when you call cut, it's funny how people can say even more profound stuff right afterwards. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to keep this piece of the conversation in.
No, that's fine.
You nailed it there.
That's fine. I'm a reflective I don't like reflecting on myself, but I am a reflective person, which is, again, it's ironic, isn't it, you know, to be that person. But yeah, I feel focused. I feel committed to that next step now. And now I know where it is and I know what's next. It makes it a bit easier.
Yeah, and
So,
also maybe making it so small that it was achievable.
yeah.
Because we could have come up with this massive thing in like 5 hours a day, and that would
Yeah.
work. But realistically, you just want to bring a little bit of change in every day.
Yeah.
And you've used the word focus quite a bit right at there, and I love that, because really the mind is all about focus, and what you're training yourself to do is focus on the gratitude, focus on you, focus on the constructive, focus on the positive, focus on self-love. And you get to choose all of that. Now, it's not always easy because you've got a default program that's stuck in there, but you can be unstuck. And that's so great. And you've proved it already, because you've already changed so much.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So here's to your freedom. This is
Hope
your year,
so.
right? This is the year. It's the final hurdle. I hope you found that coaching call really valuable. If you want more, just hit subscribe or head on over to bulimiafreedom.com, where you'll find out about everything that I do. And you can join a community of incredible people, the Bulimia Freedom Fighters, the BFFs, who are working day by day, doing the hard graft of transforming their lives from disordered eating into recovery and onto freedom. I hope to see you there.